I'm ready for you. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm really ready for you today. How are you all doing? I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for joining us. And I do know that your time is precious. So we're going to get on with the show because it's another one of those great ones. So hold on tight. Hi.
Hello, good afternoon.
See, good afternoon to you too. How are you?
I'm just
So
fine.
this is Amnon, and he is our producer. My name is Marilyn, and I am the hostess.
The hostess with the
The host.
mostest.
Well, I don't know about the mostest, but I am the hostess.
You're with the mostest.
Well, we're all the mostest. That's the interesting part of life. We're all
Yep,
the mostest. You doing good?
doing just fine.
You had a good weekend?
Had a great weekend. What
Good.
the that weather?
And we're having some great weather.
Yep.
I hope you're all having good weather, or at least you can start to smell the good weather coming. My car is so covered in green. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
it's awful.
I think it's letting off
It
now.
is
I
because
mean,
I've already had it washed once
yeah.
already this week. I went to a documentary thing yesterday, sponsored by Duke University, that was phenomenal. It's called Sunshine Cowboy, and it's about this group of people who do base jumping. Have you ever heard of that? Base jumping. You jump from these huge buildings that are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, 1,000 feet tall, or these mountaintops. I mean, amazing movie. If you have an opportunity, it's a beautiful, magnificent story. If you have an opportunity to check it out. So on with the show. A little while ago, I read this book, and I don't read a lot of fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction. And sometimes I read a book and I have it on my iPad. So every once in a while, I'll just go back and read a few pages. And I read this book by Barbara Kingslover about the prodigal summer. And it took me, I think, 2 or 3 years, really, to read the book. But I'm not in any hurry. I read a few pages whenever I feel like it. And it was an interesting story. It was a story of like four different stories of these people in this town. And right after I finished reading the book, Chris, who was our co-producer, came to me with an idea for a show. And she was telling me the story, and I'm like, huh? I swear, I just read this book, this fiction about something so similar that I thought, oh my God, is this not meant to be? Because it took me 3 years to read the book. It's not like I finished the book 3 or 4 years ago and could hardly remember it. I just finished it. And it was so freaky to know that this story was almost verbatim to the story that we are about to hear right now. And not only that, but I've just had an opportunity to chat with my guest, and you are going to really love this woman. So I am now ready to introduce you to Rebecca Count. Oh, now I got to read it because I've got so excited. Crownover. Thank you. I said it perfectly before. Now, of course, I'm not saying it so perfectly. But anyway, who cares? I want you to meet Rebecca. She has a great story, and is she doing some great work out there? Well, listen, here she goes. So, Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and don't worry about the name
Yeah.
because it gets mispronounced all the time. I've been called Cornover before, so
Oh,
Crown over.
thank you. And sometimes, you just don't know what's coming out of your mouth, and I just say, okay, God, I trust you. Just let it rip. So, anyway, it's really a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show today.
Thanks. So tell our audience, and I just want to say, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, you are more than welcome. You are invited to join our chat. There's several people in there now. You just put your name, nickname, whatever you like in the little line next to the video. By all means, you can talk to everybody in there, ask questions. You can call in if you like, and you have a landline or a cell phone. You can call in at 919-518-9773, or you can come in on Skype voice. So that would be computers, plural, 2K voice. Rebecca's on video, but you would be coming in on voice. And we welcome the opportunity to have each and every one of you join in the conversation anytime you feel like it. Rebecca, so tell everybody who you are.
Okay, well, we can go on for a long time, but I'll
That's
try to
good.
make it a great story so I don't bore too many for too long. But my name is Rebecca Crownover, and I am a children's book author, but also really and mainly a farmer by profession. I grew up on the farm in a small town in Texas called Sunray, Texas. and grew up farming with my grandfather. Ultimately, later in life, I ended up marrying a farmer and moved back to the farm. And so I guess that was in 2003 when I went back to the farm and worked with my husband on the farm, and we grew our own farming business. And then we ended up having a little girl together back in 2007. She's 8 years old today. Her name is AC. And just to kind of fast forward into the kind of what happened there. Life was going along pretty well for my husband and I, and had our child. And actually, back in 2006, we partnered with my in-laws in a family farming business. And back in 2006, my father-in-law was hit by a train going out to the farm one day, and he he was in his vehicle crossing the train tracks and didn't quite see this train come in and got hit by a train. So that was a huge tragedy to our family, and we went through that. Well, then fast forward to about 2009. Things were recovering and we were doing well, and were beginning to really grow our farm business together. And in 2009, my husband and daughter and I went to a 4th of July party, just to have some fun with some friends out in the country, where, not too far from where our farm was. And we're riding ATVs and having a lot of fun together. And my husband ended up getting in an ATV accident and was in ICU for about 6 days and passed away. So leaving behind myself and my daughter, who was 2.5 years old at the time. And so from that, I've that's been almost 6 years ago since that happened, and since then I've remained being a business partner with all my in-laws, and we still doing farming. It's one of my passions, something I just really love to do. But in the meantime, I've also become a children's book author since then.
So, wow, what a story.
Kind of like it's kind of a fast-paced one, but just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from today.
So, what kind of farm did you or do you have with your in-laws? I mean, what do you farm?
Well, we have about 30,000 acres of land, so it's a pretty large farm. We've combined all of our land and all of our equipment and things together, and we're a grain production farm, and so we farm corn and wheat and seed milo and cotton and canola. In terms of corn, we do yellow and white corn. So we do a lot of different grains, and those are all sold, through different avenues. Some of them, most of our corn and things go to feed a lot of livestock, a lot of cattle. It's also been used in white corn chips, different things. So it just depends on what the end user is wanting on those products that we grow. But yeah, it's quite large, and we have probably about 42 employees. You can look up our farm online. It's LoneStarFamilyFarms.com, and see kind of where we're located up in the Texas Panhandle.
Must be beautiful.
You would think. The Texas Panhandle, that's the thing is interesting about our farm, is that Texas, the whole climate, you just think Texas is all the same. And it's really not that way. It's the Texas Panhandle, the very square part of Texas at the top, is probably the driest part of the state. And so we're actually a very drought stricken area, and so it's really pretty brown, and there's not a lot of trees unless you plant one. You'll find them in the neighborhoods, but you don't just see them out in the farmland and that area. So it's a very, very dry area, and we use irrigation as our primary water source through the Ogallala Aquifer. And so we have to water things year round in order for things to grow out there.
So, how did they end up there?
How did
Yeah,
our
how
farm
would
end up?
they open? How would they end up there? And I mean, are they from Texas and they've always had a farm?
Yeah, it goes back to my husband's family, kind of goes back several generations, and they just kind of landed there back in the day, and have just they started small and started farming, and then just kind of stayed there. And when the Ogallala Aquifer was determined, I don't know, to be able to use that for farmland after the Dust Bowl era, it actually gave a way for farming to work out there. And so because we have that and it doesn't really rain that much, then we actually have a lot of more control with our crops and that kind of thing, so we don't have to worry near as much about too much rain or that kind of thing. So we can pretty much control our environment a little bit more that way. So it makes it a little bit more successful in some ways to do that
Interesting.
way.
That's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
So you so you have this tragedy, and your father-in-law. Did you say he passed away?
Yes, so my
Yeah.
father-in-law
Right.
was involved in a train truck accident 3 years before my husband passed away.
So when you say you're in business with your in-laws, who are you in business with?
Well, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and then my mother-in-law, and I mean that's pretty much our who the founders were. Besides my husband that isn't here today, we were the ones that kind of were the founders in terms of putting this latest organization of Lone Star Family Farms together. We had just started it in 2009, and it was a very exciting time for us after going through the tragedy of losing my father-in-law. And we were really wanting to grow our business and be more successful. And, right off the bat, I mean, we were, little over almost 7 months into that. And when tragedy struck us again and sort of took us down emotionally, for us to try to figure out how we were going to get through losing another business partner, because he was a huge key part of our organization and our business. And so it was a big loss.
What is awful, awful, awful. So what did you do after he passed away? After your husband passed away?
You mean
What
in
was the
terms of our
first? Yeah,
business?
what was the first thing? I mean, how did you pick yourself up?
Oh my goodness. Well, you don't ever know why certain things happen when they do. But he was in ICU for about 6 days before he actually passed away, before I had to take him off of life support. And in the midst of those 6 days, it was very trying. I think I may have gotten 8 hours of sleep that entire week, just by his side the whole time, staying the night at the hospital, still trying to see my daughter and, be a mom. And my mom and dad were so helpful during that time to help me with that. But um, to be honest, like there was a turning point within the time that my husband was in ICU, and someone handed me a book called Power and Praise, and I still think of it to this day. It was such a turning point for me, and a friend just handed it to me about 3 days into him being in ICU and said, I think you should read this book. And really and truly, I only read the first chapter and I just went into tears. And it just talks about, we don't know why bad, hard situations happen in our life. And, you know, God is there. He's in control. And, we get upset because we think, well, God, why are you doing this in my life? Or why is this happening in my life? But this book just brought it home, because it was just like, just praise God for whatever you're going through right now, whether it's hard or, we all tend to thank God for when good things happen in our life, but not the bad things. And so I just began to start praying and praising him for the things I was going through and the things I was learning, and to use that to help me get through the next, however long that the situation was going to happen with my husband in the hospital. And literally, it allowed me to just kind of perk up and realize that there was more to life than just, the day in and the day out. And then that God was going to use me in this situation way beyond what I was thinking in those moments there while my husband was in ICU. And so at the end of those 6 days, the doctors really couldn't do a whole lot more for my husband. And his lungs were filling up with fluid. His body was failing. We had put him in a coma to try to see if we could heal it. He had a brain injury, and to see if we could heal that through putting him in a coma. And ultimately, he just his body began to fail and give up. So at the end of those 6 days, I had to make the choice of taking him off of life support, and was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And was just, I was just in shock. I couldn't believe what I was going through and what I was having to do. And not only that, one of my best friends at the time, she was about 7 months pregnant or 6 months pregnant, and had a miscarriage that same week, and had a funeral the day before my husband died. So I ran to that funeral, left my husband just long enough to go to her funeral for her baby that she had to deliver, that had passed away. And so I went and did that, and then had to take my husband off of life support. And that was a whole lot in about 6 days in my life. But when I'm telling you, that was a turning point when I read that book and started looking at things a little bit different and taking a different approach in life. And as soon as I had my husband's funeral, the week after, I thought, I'm a pretty strong woman. I think I can handle a lot of things. But I was afraid I was not going to be able to handle that situation the right way, being a mother, a single mother all of a sudden, and having a lot to deal with my business. And so the first thing I did to help pick myself up was get with a counselor. And so I went to a counselor literally the week after my husband's funeral, and just started every single week, like a couple times a week, for a while, just going through those emotions. Because I don't know if anyone out there, some of your audience, has ever gone through such a tragic situation, but when something like that happens, it's like the emotions just come up through your body. It's almost like when you have heartburn or something, you just feel those feelings like up in your throat and stuff. Well, my emotions were just so intense and so up here that every time I went to a counselor, it was like I felt like just a little bit just shaved down so I could get those feelings back down. And it just took a lot of time. And seriously, going through counseling was the biggest thing that helped me release a lot of those emotions and helped me get on the right track.
You did the best thing you could have ever done for yourself, as opposed to denying the feelings, denying the mourning, denying whatever comes up, guilt sometimes, whatever it happens to be. You did, you heard something come through to you loud and clear. Whatever that message was a
Hmm.
really strong message, and you heard it, because that was a phenomenal thing you have to do that. You have to have some hope. You have to feel some light at the end of the tunnel, because otherwise you're just going to curl up. You have to already know that there's something to work on. There's a reason
That's
to work on something. Yeah.
absolutely. And there's a Bible verse in the Bible, says it's Jeremiah 29:11. And it's, for the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for hope and promise in front of you. And I just took that to heart. I don't know, someone showed that to me also that week that my husband was in ICU, and I just grasped onto it. And, it's so hard, because when you have to have, for me, I have to have God in my life in order to move on through something like that. If I didn't, I don't know where I would be today. And to take God's promise in that verse, I still hold on to it today, and I believe that I do have hope in front of me, and that no matter what valleys I go through, no matter how hard it gets, that I will find the blessings out of the valleys, and I will find that hope that's in front of me. And carrying on my life that way has brought so many blessings, and it's unbelievable when I look back. And I'm telling the story to you right now, and I look back and I think about what I was going through. Like, to tell you that I would be here in front of you 6 years later after writing children's books and touching people's lives, I would have never dreamed it. And I know that there's even more hope in front of me. And when you have that attitude and you go seek the help that you need in order to move forward in the best way possible, it means everything.
It's interesting, because when Rebecca and I were chatting before the show, we kind of touched upon a few very, heartwarming things. And of course, her strength in her religion came up. And some of you know that have listened that I'm Jewish, but, we are not, this world was not meant to be, I'm not meant to be judgmental. I have a similar experience, and not experience of death, a similar experience of the power of believing as Rebecca does. And, I remember reading a book way back, was written by a rabbi, and it was called God on the Edge. And the title was so powerful to me, because it said, it's easy to believe in something when when it's not hard, but it's a whole nother thing to dig up that belief, to dig up that strength when things are really not going great. And that's where you find God on the edge, is when it's really edgy and you're really having a complicated, tough time. So this message, this general overall message, is so important for, you know, take this show, Breaking Free. It's so important. It does sculpt out how we get to live our lives on a day to day basis when you have this belief. It does really help you get going. So, anyway, how long were you in? You might have been you might still be in therapy. I don't know, but how long before you then, at that point, going through therapy, did you take the next step to on with your life? Whether it was, staying on the farm, leaving the farm, writing the book. How long did that take?
I probably solid for about 6 months. Went to counselor. I mean, I went to counseling solid really for a little over a year until finally my counselor, when I'd go in to see him, we would just, shoot the bull and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" I didn't have anything else to talk to him about hardly.
Uh-huh.
And so he finally just wrote me a letter and said, "Okay, you don't have to come anymore." Like
That's when you
I was
know.
just,
That's when you know when you start talking about the weather and things that people are eating and buying. That's when you know you're like, okay, you're there.
right. No, exactly. And so but I went solid. I said, I've got to get on this now because I believe that in times of hard situations, especially for me, that the longer you put off counseling or the longer you put off trying to deal with something and not facing it head on, it just prolongs your healing. It prolongs the recovery of it. And so when you're proactive, and even though you do not want to face it, it's so emotional, it's so hard, it's better to deal with it right then and there than to wait till later when it's starting to affect a future relationship and then all of it finally comes out.
Mhm.
And so because of that, I didn't want to want that situation to really impact my future relationships with people. I wanted to be able to deal with it and to move on. And
Have you always been a positive person?
I've always tried to find the good out of everything.
Okay.
That's kind of how I was brought up. And so, yeah, I've always tried to. It doesn't mean it's always been easy.
No, because when you get tested,
Yes,
I mean,
ultimately.
that all of our theories at some point get tested. You know, I mean, if you believe something so strongly, you're going to get tested. If you don't
Mhm.
believe something so strongly, you're going to get tested. We're always going to get tested.
It's very true.
Yeah. So 6 months, and then what?
And then I was happy. I mean, was feeling happy again. And now I look back and I'm thinking back then I thought I was happy and I thought I was doing really good compared to where I, had come from that shocking moment of losing a husband. But now I look back even almost 6 years later and I'm like, wow, I mean, I've even overcome all of that and I mean, happier today and more at peace today than even I was 6 months to a year after my husband's death. So, after I just tried to live life and I put my foot back out there. I just tried to be like, dating again and just meeting new people and just putting myself out of my comfort zone and being okay with it because I'd come from a really hard frame of mind there after you lose your husband and that was the ultimate, uncomfortable zone to be in. So I knew if I could get through that piece, then it was okay for me to step back out and to be put myself in new zones in different ways to try to build myself back.
Well, you have a lot of things to share because you of course had to have your personal experience going through this death. Then you also are the mother of a young child, and you're in business with your in-laws,
Mhm.
uh, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, mother-in-law, in-laws, and then you're a young, beautiful woman with your whole life ahead of you, and you have all these different things to attend to. So it's really amazing that you did it, and you are the perfect person to share it because you had all these things, and you have a wonderful way of relaying what went on. So it's really terrific.
Oh,
You
thank
know,
you.
you're welcome. So let's go through them a little, and then I want to
Okay.
get to your book because that's like a really cool thing. Rebecca writes this book about you know farming, and she's helping this next generation, our young children, about farming, and which is so important. Agriculture is really important, and what's going on in our food chain and all of that stuff. So let's just really go through. So what did you do for your daughter during this period?
Well, for her, she was a little insecure. She slept with me every single night. I kind of tried. It was kind of a comfort for both of us, and that I think that's pretty common in those situations. But she asked a lot of questions, and she didn't understand where her daddy was, and so she asked all the time, "Where's my daddy? Where's my daddy?" Well. growing up, she went to church, and she was 2.5 years old at the time. So it's hard to explain to a child that age, like where your dad is. And so one thing I learned with the little kid is that you just have to be consistent in your answers, and you have to sometimes tell them the same exact thing over and over, till they finally kind of get it. And so with her, I just kept telling her, well, your daddy is in heaven with Jesus. And she learned about Jesus at church and different things. So that was kind of our phrase that we used back then to kind of help her understand that. Well, where's Jesus? Well, he's in heaven. Well, where's heaven? Well, we don't exactly know where heaven is, but that's the place, so it's like very simple answers. And it finally, like, over and over, kept giving her the same answers, which was so interesting to watch a child kind of formulate it in her own mind, as small as she was, that she would, when she finally wouldn't get that answer, your daddy's in heaven with Jesus, then she'd come up with a new question. And finally, it finally hit her. She said, am I ever going to see my daddy again? And at that point, that's when it just broke loose with me in front of her. And I'm like, no, you're not going to get to see him again until one day when we get to heaven. And, it was one of those just surreal moments of working with my daughter and going through those questions with her. And so I've always tried to be very real with her in my answers, and not try to just make up a lot of things just to appease her. And when she asked about her dad, or when she's struggling with something, I deal with it right then. Something I learned in counseling. I don't blow her off, because when a child wants to talk to you about something, they want to talk right then. They don't want to hold it off, because then they've lost their attention later, and then they don't want to talk about it later. So, trying to help her through that process was just dealing with it as it came, and trying to answer her questions the best that I could.
Well, yeah, I mean, you handled that. I mean, as good as you could possibly handle it, and you took it, as your child gets older and older and asks more and more questions. So that was that. Now you're in business with your in-laws. So that's a
Right.
whole nother thing, because that's a whole nother something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Well, and it's hard.
yeah.
I mean, working with family in general is a super hard thing. So if any of your audience is out there, like, I work with family, they understand it's a difficult process to work with family. But one of the things that we had established early on, even before my husband had passed away, was communication. And so when we had hard times, or we had things that we had a problem with each other on, then we'd sit down and talk about them at our kitchen tables. And they were hard conversations, but it was a tool that I learned even from my in-laws on how to get through some hard things. So through all that process of losing my father-in-law, and then my husband, we just talked a lot during that time. And we kind of sort of helped each other. We all had the same common goal in our business. I've always been an entrepreneur by heart. I grew up farming with my grandfather, and my dad was an entrepreneur. And so I've just always loved being in business, on my own. And so I had a passion for our farm, just as much as they did. And so I've stayed on with it, and continued to go down that path with them, and stay, in business partners. And I've loved it. It was the one thing after my husband died that I felt like that was my purpose, at the time. And it still is today, that that's my professional passion, and something that I want to continue to build a legacy for even my daughter. And so just being able to build that relationship. My in-laws are wonderful. They are amazing people, and I've learned so much from them through business. And we've been able to be on the same page, and really grow our business in a way that we have our vision that we've envisioned for. So that's it. And it was hard, because after my husband died, and anybody that's ever been in the situation where they've lost a spouse, you sort of lose your identity. Because after that, it was like, oh, you're so and so's wife, you're so and so's wife. Yes, but no one really understood who I was. And so, I had to kind of go on this path right after that. I knew my purpose of being a part of my family business with my in-laws, but I had to find myself again and rebrand myself. And so, trying to figure out a way to do that, and kind of show, this is me, this is who I am, is kind of what launched me into getting involved in children's books. From that point, just trying to rebrand myself. And that's where, I told you about my daughter saying, my daddy is in heaven with Jesus. That's what we used. Well, what I ended up doing was putting together a children's book called My Daddy is in Heaven with Jesus, to kind of help her, but also to help other children find comfort in a time of loss of a parent. And so, that was something that I did to kind of help rebrand myself along the time while I was still pursuing, all of the farm stuff with my in-laws.
Just, I want to get into your book now, but just what was your husband's name?
His name was Adam.
Adam. Okay. I
Yes,
just feel like it's important that we know his name,
absolutely.
because he's out here somewhere. So, um, it's really important. I think if you're all getting this, is that it's in a time of loss or in a time of confusion, even if it doesn't have to be a loss as great as what Rebecca went through, but any kind of shift in your life, it's really good to find something that anchors you, something that gets you up every day, something that you can hang your hat on. It's really a very important lesson to try to find that in your life, I think, for whatever you're going through. What would you say, Rebecca?
Absolutely. Because even since all of that tragedy and all that took place, I mean, I still just like a normal human being. We have either, an issue going on in our workplace, or you're a mother or, a father, and you have a problem dealing with something with a child or another relationship. And all of those are little valleys, different little valleys that we deal with on a daily basis. And every day you have to wake up and say, what can I do to make the best out of the situation? And how can I move forward in it? And what can I do to make it better? It's something, yeah, like you have to look at it on a daily basis, whether you've ever gone through a tragedy or not in your life. You always have to try to pick yourself up out of those valleys and find the best in everything.
Yeah, really. So you write. So now you've become an author. And when did that all begin for you? Give us a timeline. So your husband dies, and you're going through all this rebirthing kind of thing. When
Right.
in the spectrum, when in that spectrum did you start to write?
Well, I've always kind of wanted to write a book my entire life, but I just never knew what it was going to be about. And even after my husband died, I tried to write an actual like autobiography type, and I just could not do it. I just was struggling with it so much. And anyway, I was reading these children's book. I read a children's book to my daughter every single night when she goes to bed, and I was reading a book one night, and I thought, why can't I'm here trying to write this autobiography that I'm like struggling hugely with. I'm like, why can't I just write a children's book? It's so simple, and these are kids, just, it doesn't have to be a whole lot. I'm like, I can do this. And there was a story just going on in my mind, of everything that my daughter and I had gone through. So my husband had passed away in 2009, and then it was 2012, I believe, that I actually, January 2012, when I actually decided to actually put what was on my mind down on paper. And when I did, of course, there were many tears that came across on that paper as I wrote this story. But ultimately, it was just something that I came up with that I felt like, could really help my daughter and kind of help other people. And when I got it all down on paper and started looking at it, I thought, oh my goodness, I should really, really and truly get this published, because this can really help some people. And so, and then that's kind of what it just kind of came to me as like an epiphany, after reading children's books to my daughter one night, that I needed to write what was down in my head. And from there, I just took it and ran.
Well, I want to get into the book, but before I do, I just want to welcome anyone out there that wants to call in and chat with Rebecca, me. You're more than welcome to give us a call at 919-518-9773, or you can Skype in with us on voice at computers. That's plural, the number 2K, voice, all together, no dots, no spaces, no nothing. And you can also partake in our chat, and there's a lot of things going on there. So by all means, feel free. You just put your name in that little line, nickname, your real name, whatever you like, and you can partake in there and ask questions. Would love to have you call in. This is an invitation to please anytime you like. If the moment strikes you, or please feel free. So the story is it's the story you told your daughter?
Yeah, so basically it just is from her point of view. So I wrote it, and I've got it right here with me. You can kind of see the cover. So it's like with her on the cover,
Beautiful.
with this cute little umbrella, and the title of it is called "My Daddy is in Heaven with Jesus," because that's what I had told her from the day one of where her daddy is, when she was asking all the questions. And so yeah, I wrote it from her perspective as a child.
So she
Uh,
would be, so this book is a book that a child would pick up and say, here's another child writing to me, or here's another child sharing their personal experience with me. Is that what
right.
you're saying?
That's
That's great. That's
yes. And
great.
so yeah, and I just felt like that was it was I wanted to tell it from her story. I mean, yeah, I wrote it, of course, but I could see it through her eyes and the things that we went through and the questions that she asked. And I felt like that would be most effective way of communicating with another child that's on that that's gone through some similar type process or similar situation. And even like a child doesn't have to lose their parent through an ATV accident or whatever. I mean, it's it's all common what goes on with children, I think, in times of loss and the questions that they ask and the things the answers they're trying to get to. And so it's a very simple form and very simple to read, and it gets the point across. And ultimately, at the end of the day, and in the end of this book, I say, God wasn't being mean to our family by taking my dad away. And this is from her perspective. It's just that God had another plan for me and my mommy, and I can't wait to see what happens there. And so it just comes back to that whole thing of having hope and faith in your future and the plan that God has for your life. And the different things you're going to be involved in is that no matter how hard a situation you go through, that you can still get through it and you can still put hope and faith in front of you for whatever is going to be ahead.
Right. I know there are people that are listening and will go, well, how can I be grateful that this happened or that happened? And you're not grateful for somebody passing away, but you are
Right.
grateful for the lesson. You are
Right.
grateful for the strength. You are grateful for the message. You are grateful because all of a sudden your family shows up in a way they'd never showed up before, or maybe that you hadn't seen before, or you have a new friend that hands you a book, and you see the love around you. That's what you're grateful for. And that's by seeing that, that is the hand that takes you to the next moment in your life. So that's what you're being grateful for.
Absolutely. And you couldn't have said that any better. That is absolutely right on.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're all faced with all kinds of stuff on a regular basis, as I said before, and regardless of what it is, there is a way to claw your way to gratitude. There is a way to claw your way to appreciation. I mean, and what you find when you're there is this inner wisdom, this inner strength, these moments of intuition, your purpose. I mean, oh my God, what else is there? I mean, that's what's there, not what else is there, but that is what's there. Is you find your purpose, you find your power. So, what is Texas Farm Girl? What is it that you are the founder of?
Well, after I wrote My Daddy's in Heaven with Jesus, I realized after I went on kind of tour with it and I did a lot of publicity with it that I didn't want to continue down that road of the series of children's books about grief and it was really difficult to do. And so I thought, what can I do that will be different? That I still love doing children's books, but what can I do that's different? And so then I thought, well, what am I an expert in? Because anytime you write a book, it's because you're an expert in something. And so I thought, well, I'm a farmer by profession. That's what I'm an expert in, right? It's what I've grown up, been around all my life. And so I decided to start a new children's book line and brand called Texas Farm Girl. And Texas Farm Girl goes back uh, to the days of me growing up with my grandfather on the farm. I learned a lot of life lessons and learned a lot growing up on the farm. And so what I felt like through my first children's book, I was able to take an experience and inspire and impact others' lives through it. And I thought, well, with Texas Farm Girl, how do I kind of keep on that same path? And so by taking some experiences that I had growing up on the farming for my grandfather, I've been able to put those into story form within Texas Farm Girl. And I released two. One was back in 2013, and then I released a new Texas Farm Girl, Reap What You Sow, back in January of this year. And it just basically teaches life lessons. It's meant to, the mission is to engage or to entertain, inspire, and educate kids through farming. And so, being able to take those three things, I want to be able to take my life experiences at the farm and inspire others through it and teach them a life lesson or teach them something that they can apply to their own lives using farming as that vehicle. But at the same time, I want to entertain and have fun, and also educate so they can learn something about farming, because it's getting so, kids are not getting educated near as much today as they have in the past about farming, and so trying to keep all of that alive, and so trying to really incorporate those three things into it. I've been able to build a really fun brand, and something that I go out and work with kids on. I go do different school events and read books and educate them about farming, and I've written also co-wrote a country music song called Texas Farm Girl with a country rock artist out of Nashville, Billy Dawson, and we've done music and we've done a music video, and we did that out at our farm last summer, and so we've done a lot of exciting things with Texas Farm Girl that really draws kids in and adults in, because then even some of the adults have learned a lot of things out of my books, Texas Farm Girl books. And the schools are really liking them. They're liking to use use them for education, and teachers are liking the Reap What You Sow that I just put out to kind of teach kids a life lesson about the decisions they make and how those affect their future. So it's a very exciting new avenue, and all along doing that, I'm still farming. I'm still a part of our family farm and always will. I just kind of do it in parallel, but it's a fun way to really engage with
So
kids.
these are, when you say you put these stories out, are they in books?
Yes.
So let's see them.
Okay, so this is the very first one. It's called Texas Farm Girl.
Uh-huh.
And I talked a little bit earlier in this interview about how farming is different in the Texas Panhandle versus a lot of areas in the United States. It's very drought stricken. And so this book actually gives a little education about what it's like farming in the Texas Panhandle. And then it also goes into like a story of where a tornado comes and hits the farm. But in the end, we always find the positive out of the negative, and that even though the corn crop got torn up, or we lost our barn, the roof off of our barn, it's okay because we still had each other. And so that's kind of what you learn through this book. So you get a little education, entertainment, but then a good lesson about finding the positive out of the negative. And this one right here, this actually won several awards with the Christian Literary Awards, and so I was really excited about that. And then this was the latest one that came out in January. It's an Amazon bestseller on release day, and it's called Texas Farm Girl, Reap What You Sow. And this one actually tells an actual story of what happened for me when I was farming for my grandfather. He asked me to plant a field of corn, and when I went to do that, I actually made a huge mistake, and it had to be replanted. And so I had to learn a huge life lesson out of that. And so it's a lesson that I put in here so that kids can understand what it's like to making, how important it is to make good decisions in life, because good decisions can always reap good benefits.
So let me ask you a question. So what is farming a metaphor for you? It seems like farming represents something. What is that?
It's a passion. It's something it's like
what is it?
I'm trying to. That's a good question.
I mean, because the things I'm sitting here, and early on, Chris asked a question about why are you passionate about farming, and Amnon wanted to remind me to make sure that I asked you that question. In the meantime, I'm listening to you talk about all these things, and then you hit upon it when you said, you planted the corn, and you made a mistake, and so I'm thinking, there's so many life lessons to learn from being on a farm, whether it's you eat what you plant, you learn about the elements. What does it represent for you? Because it's huge.
It is huge, and it's part of my heritage. It's part of my bloodline. I mean, not just that I'm in business with my in-laws, but my family was too, and my family goes back generations of farming. And for me, it's about like this is what farmers do. It's a lifestyle, and it's something that's part of my heritage, that everything that a farmer does, it goes to the end user. We consume products every single day that was started by a farmer. And so to be at that back end, that very first process of being able to be a farmer and to be able to be a part of something that's just, it's about being a part of something that's really giving back. And so many people don't think about it. People don't remember the farm. I mean, they think, oh, there's farmers out there. They don't realize when they're eating every single day, whether it's a fresh vegetable or something even that's processed that's on the shelf, there's something that the farmer produced that's in that. And for me, it's about being able to give back in a way, to the end user. I mean, it's like I'm contributing to a huge thing out there that you think it's small because we're just a farmer. We're not just a farmer. We're contributing to the world, to the food supply. And it's, to me, it's like it's so much more than just plowing dirt and growing corn.
How have you seen farming change?
It's changing. It's changed a lot, and it's going to change a whole lot more because it's become a whole lot tougher for an American farmer these days, and it's hard to be a small farmer. So you're going to see. I've seen a lot of consolidation happening in the farming industry. A lot of smaller farmers are having a hard time staying in business because of the economics of it. And so you're going to continue to see a lot of consolidation within agriculture, within farming. And we've already seen that. We've seen that happening in the past, and it's something that we've been trying to prepare ourselves for, in terms of growth and growing our farm to a sustainable level to be able to stay in business for the long term.
So, I guess I want to ask you your corn. Is it GMO? See, I mean, how does that? What do you? I have to ask.
Of course, and it's okay. We're not an organic farm, but we do grow GMOs, but we do have non-GMOs. And the thing is, and this is what I have to tell, this is what I tell everybody when they ask about GMOs and those kind of things, is that what we grow as farmers is driven by the demand of the consumer. And there are a lot of needs for things, GMO. So if there's a demand for GMO corn, then we'll grow that. There's also needs for non-GMO, and it's becoming more and more demanded by the consumer. And so, we do grow some non-GMO corn that is distributed through different avenues through our business. And so, it's all based on the demand, though, of what the consumer wants, and what the consumer wants kind of drives a lot more, specialty products and different things that we can grow to help meet that demand.
There's so many. There's a whole area that I would love to get into, and I know that before I know, see, this hour went by so fast. We have 10 minutes left, and I mean, oh my God, there's so much more to talk about. But I guess, how are you affected by the big boys like Monsanto and all of those things that go on, that we hear about in the news, and that some of the farmers tell us? I mean, we're a big farming culture here in North Carolina, and I for one like to go to the farmers market and buy as much from them as I can possibly buy. So how are you affected, or what would you say to those of us that read the news and hear about Monsanto and all of that kind of stuff? What would you say as the Texas farm girl?
I think you really have to be careful of the avenues that you listen to, because everybody has their agenda. A lot of people have their agenda, and they're promoting one extreme to another. And Monsanto, Pioneer. I mean, there's different companies, Syngenta. They're all doing a lot of good. And every company. I mean, if you think of any business in the United States, there's a lot of businesses that do good, and some that that we have that people find negative about them. And it seems like, to me, a lot of people are always consistently trying to find something negative out of these big seed companies. But these seed companies, we also have to remember, are also providing a lot of opportunity for us, because they have grown to a certain level that they're able to put a lot of money into research and provide products for us as farmers that have helped us become way more efficient today than we used to be 30 to 40 years ago. So they do a lot of good for what we do as farmers in terms of trying to find and build the right products of seed that we can make, for the end consumer. And it's people look at Monsanto and say, oh, they're all GMO. Well, the whole company isn't just GMO. They provide a lot of different services and a lot of different seed varieties that are even non-GMO. And the research that they've been able to come up with is been real helpful to us. And also, when you think about in 2050, the year 2050, there's going to be over 9 billion people on this planet. And how are we going to feed all of those people? They're spending a ton of money right now trying to figure out ways to make that happen. And I think one of these days, I mean, a lot of people will look at that and say, be thankful for some of the things they do. So I don't feel like you can really cast a stone at every single thing that you see. I think you have to take things with a grain of salt and really make sure you get the right information and formulate your right opinion on a lot of that.
Yep. Well, that was a good summing up of that. So, so you are traveling throughout Texas. Are you going throughout the country, taking this brand with you?
Of course, I promoted, nationally, but I really do. I've been really focusing on the state of Texas and doing a lot of because there's so much here in Texas, and everybody loves in Texas loves Texas type stuff, and so yeah, of course, I have people that are purchasing things through my website all the time, from out of state that probably used to live in Texas that now live out in Nebraska or Wyoming or whatever, but yeah, most of my touring and most of the effort that I've been putting into is Texas. But I still go. I'm going to Kansas City later this week, so I'm actually gonna be promoting out there too. So it just depends on what's going on, but heavily for sure in Texas.
Okay. It's a big state, huh?
Yes.
How is your daughter doing?
She's doing fantastic. I couldn't be more thankful and blessed to have such a happy child. She does not remember her dad, and does not have any memories of him because she was so young. But it's just unbelievable to me, like how happy she is all the time. I'm like, why can't we all be this happy? But I've really put her in a good situation. I've really surrounded us both with a really good support system and put her in a good place and surrounded her with good kids, at her school and that kind of thing. And so just trying to put her in the right environment has been just unbelievable for her, and she's just doing really well. I'm very thankful for that.
Mm. And you don't live on the farm.
I don't now. I travel back and forth all the time to the farm. I live actually out in Dallas, and our farm is about 6 hours away up in the Texas Panhandle. And mostly, we've been able to grow our business enough to the point that I've handled a lot on the business side, and I do a lot of PR for it and a lot of different things. And so I'm always actually traveling. So it's actually easier to be in Dallas to travel to different things for our farm. And but with technology these days, it's like I can connect to their computers in a heartbeat and be online with them in any second. So it's in some ways like I'm always there. But anyway, it's been a good situation for me to be able to do both.
It's remarkable, really. I'm in the process of writing a series of books about conflict and conflict resolution amongst different groups of in relationships, whether it's could be mother daughter, father son, husband wife, boyfriend girlfriend, whatever, all kinds. And I thought at one point, and I was asking people for their personal stories that they about conflict, about how they've resolved it or not resolved it, because I want to include those in the book. And then one day I was driving and I thought, why am I need to start asking people about their stories of peace. So maybe you, at some point, if you have time, maybe would consider even just, a couple of paragraphs of
Sure.
how do you maintain peace in your, how is it maintained? And we can talk about it, but I would love, because it's a perfect example of, what can be done when when you want to. I think when you want to, when you make that choice, of how you maintain that peace. So maybe we can chat about it. It's fascinating to me.
Absolutely, I'd love
Yeah.
to chat with you about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's terrific. So are you dating? I'm
I'm
saving the
still
best
pretty
question for
single.
last. No.
I'm so single right now.
Okay.
But yes, I have dated. Yeah, because I said, after, especially it was after a year of my husband being gone, I started dating again, and it just, I've been through a couple of relationships that didn't quite work out the way I had hoped that they would, but. I look back and I'm, thankful that I'm still here where I'm at, and I learned a lot from those situations or a lot from those relationships. And I just, I believe wholeheartedly and have faith that that person is out there for me. And I am just not, I kind of had to sort of lift my hands up and say, just give it to God and be like, God, I'm not going to worry about it, because if I do, then I get too caught up overthinking things. And so I just know when the time is right, then I'll run into that person, and I will be so excited and thankful and appreciate that person more than anybody. So from what I've gone through, so yeah, I'm dating, I'm
Good.
single, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's all okay. You're thriving. So tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your books. What what will we find when we get there?
Okay, so you can go to texasfarmgirl.com. Super easy, texasfarmgirl.com. I have an online store there, but you'll see the country music video that we put together with Billy Dawson out at our farm, and the song, and you'll learn about me, my story. You can also go to my personal author website, which is RebeccaCrownover.com. That's REBECCA, Crown, CROWNOVER.com. And once again, it'll have more information about My Daddy Is in Heaven with Jesus in that book. And so between those two websites, you'll learn a whole lot about me and my story. And of course, you can contact me through there if you have any questions or want to get in touch. And then, of course, my books are also available on Amazon.com, the favorite place to order things these days.
We only have a few minutes, but I would at the beginning of before the show actually went live, you said something about the diamond, and I thought that would be a beautiful way of
Oh,
us,
yeah.
ending the show today. So can you just share, a few minutes of that story?
Absolutely. So a few months before my husband passed away, I was at lunch with my in-laws, and it was next to the jewelry store, and I thought, I'm gonna go get my ring cleaned. It's been a little while, and while y'all are finishing up lunch, I'm gonna run next door and get my ring cleaned. Well, I went to the jewelry store and it was closed, and I thought, okay, well, whatever. They were closed for lunch, so I'll just do it another time. Didn't think anything about it. Well, that night when I went to bed, I just looked down at my ring and noticed that the diamond was missing. And I just was like in panic. I thought, oh my goodness, like I lost my diamond. Where is it at? And so all of a sudden I jumped out of bed and I was looking through my car and trying to find it. And I called my friends that we'd been at their house. And the next day I went and looked everywhere and nowhere to be found. I could not find this diamond. And then of course, so then my husband was like, it's okay, we'll save up some money, and this fall we'll for Christmas for you, we'll get another diamond and put it into it, and that kind of thing. And so I said okay, but it still was painful. I was like, very, that was, when a woman loses her wedding ring or her wedding diamond, it's a big deal, and it crushed me that I did that. Well, then my husband passed away, a few months later, and it just crushed me even more. I thought, why did this happen? Like, I don't understand why I would lose my diamond, and I was trying to be responsible about it by, even if the jewelry store would have just been open that day, I wouldn't have ever lost it. And so anyway, I was just crushed even more. And I even went and bought another diamond, put in it, just because I was like, this is the last time I'll ever be able to wear my wedding ring. And then finally I was like, you know what, I can't, this isn't the same diamond. It's not the same ring. And so it was easier for me to kind of put it away because of that. Well, then fast forward not quite a year after my husband had passed away, but I was at a friend's house, happened to be a friend's house that we were at that day. And it was like it's spring, time, and she had dogs in the backyard. And anyway, we hung out, had dinner at her house, and then I left. And then she called me in hysterics. She said, "You've got to come right back to the house." And I was like, "Okay, why?" She says, "You have to come back." And so I went back to her house, and the door's wide open. I'm like, "What happened in 30 seconds since I've left your house?" And she's screaming, and she said, "Give me your hand." And I said, "Okay." And I put my hand out, and she puts my diamond into my hand. And I just started bawling. I'm like, "Where did you find this?" And she said, "After you left, I went out to my backyard, and I just had the moon was shining right down in my yard, and I saw something sparkly in the grass, and I went over to it, and your diamond was sitting right there." I mean, we get a lot of snow, and she had dogs in her backyard, and it was just it's I've heard a good diamond always comes home, and mine certainly did. And
Wow.
for the reason why I had to go through all of that, I don't know, except for the only thing I can think is that it was helpful. I was able to put my ring away a lot faster and try to move on. Because the original diamond wasn't in my ring during that time, and it's like once I kind of moved on and was feeling happy again, that's when it showed up, and it's just I still am like dumbfounded as to why all that happened, but it's an amazing story that something that tiny would just show up like that.
What a message. What a message. Well, Rebecca, it's been such an honor to have you here with us today. Thank
It's
you.
been an honor to be talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your entire life with us in an hour. Woof!
I know we could do another hour.
We sure can, and we're going to have to talk again, I'm sure, because there's more to talk about. But it's an hour is great, and you think you can get so much accomplished, but you're really only scratching the surface. There's so much more to talk about. But I want to thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank all of you for sharing your time with us today. And that diamond story, I'm leaving you with that. Think about it, because it's a powerful, powerful story of freedom. So remember it. And with that, I want to thank you all for being here today. We'll be here next week again with another phenomenal show. I wish you all well. Have a wonderful afternoon, a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week. And Rebecca, mwah, thank you.
Thank you. God bless all of you.
Thank you.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVBI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.